Hello and thank you for listening to our traditional Christmas and end of year episode of Just Get a Real Job. I'm thrilled to welcome back on the show Ashley Dick of Cinora, who we've had on the podcast. This will be your fourth time, I think, on the podcast. So
yeah, I've taken part in a few now, haven't I?
yeah, I've also obviously been on Cinora a few times as well. So, I've done this quite a lot now. But how are you? Thank you. We always do this every year. We look back on the year, sort of have a bit of a chat with a former guest. So it's lovely to have you back on.
Really excited to do it. The funny thing is that the day you messaged me to ask if I'd come on, I had just written a list of everything Cinora had done that year. So I was already in the mindset. Exactly. I was like, yes, I'm ready to talk about it.
Well, as well, like, this is quite funny because we're recording this on the 23rd of December, so 2 days away from Christmas, which feels... this year has been so weird. Like, I feel like the run up to Christmas has lasted so long. It's been such a fully packed year. Lots of exciting things happening for both of us. But I feel so tired. I'm like, where's the year gone?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I feel like ever since the end of October, I've been thinking about the deadline of Christmas and like, what do I need to get done before then? What am I scheduling for after it? And now it's here. It feels like that was a massive race to like this point, but also like it's stretched out for a good 2 months. But I'm excited. It's going to be nice to have a couple of days of rest, but I'll be swinging back into it as soon as possible.
Well, I feel like our version of rest, Ash, is that we both just do our like passion projects when we're off and we go, oh, I've got time to do all this stuff. So it's not really a rest.
100%. Any day off is just what can I do for Cinora to me? Like, what can I squeeze in whilst I'm having rest?
Oh God, yeah. I know. I was thinking to myself like, oh, I'm off tomorrow, so like I can sit and I could make some some content for TikTok or Instagram and stuff. And I'm like, well, you could also spend some time with your family, but
yeah. You could watch a Christmas film, or you could just chill out.
The career struggle.
I know, I get it. Totally.
Yeah. Just in case, I'd be shocked if our listeners didn't know who you were by now, Ash. But we do have some new listeners coming on board. But do you want to reintroduce yourself for the listeners? Tell us a bit about Cinora, who you are, what you've been doing, because you've had a very exciting year, as I mentioned before.
Thanks. I am Ash. I run Cinora. So I set Cinora up as a production company about 1.5 years ago because I really wanted to stimulate the Scottish creative scene and be proactive about making stuff. At that point in time in 2023, there were a lot of things holding us all back, and I just felt like I have to do something. I have to be on it and make stuff. So that's what we did. We started with some short films. I make online content, which is mostly educational. I share videos all about what it's like behind the scenes in the Scottish screen industry and how to get in, advice on filling in application forms or going to festivals or making something on zero budget. And yeah, just really trying to give people a 360 view of what it's like. And it's snowballed. So over the last year, we have branched out to doing more education. I give talks with NFTS and at different colleges and universities. I'm going to be partnering up with a project next year via Screen Scotland to deliver more workshops and training. We also are now venturing into our first feature film, which is a documentary. I have been accepted onto Animatics, so I'm working on an animated series now too. Cinora has become almost a mini studio in a sense that we're now kind of doing so many different types of projects and so many different parts of the production machine, all the way from beginners learning new skills and coming up with ideas to kind of distribution and that kind of strategy. And yeah, it's been a really great year for us. And I feel like I'm spinning so many plates at the moment, but in a good way, and definitely feels like that moment where I was like, oh my God, everything's closing down and all the doors are closing, like I've got to do something, now is finally getting to a place where it's like, yeah, we made this happen for ourselves. And I'm keen to share that with other people and help them find their own way too. So that's Cinora in a nutshell.
And you've been doing all that on top of working full time and having jobs and stuff. So it's very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. So my background was in editing and animation. I was a freelancer for about 3 years and worked on different projects, either for broadcast or there was some independent films as well. And I really loved that. But again, come 2023, that kind of world just really got a bit smaller. There wasn't a lot of commissions happening, and I had to look for something else. But what I found was there was a lot of opportunity in online content. And then from that, I learned a bit about, well, here's how I can actually kind of get the ball rolling using online content and sort of bridging the gap between the worlds of that and broadcast and film.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's kind of how, so that was where Sonora's strength was as well, because although that was my day job, I was editing videos for YouTube or podcasts or social content, commercial things. What I learned from that world was really how to like get the audience in and build trust. And now that has come full circle. It was an audience that has helped me fund the first feature, and everything has sort of like fallen into place. So yeah, my day job has been in social content, and I think initially going into that, I was a little bit worried that I was taking a step away from like a part of the industry that feels very prestige, but actually it's been the thing that has managed to make everything flourish in the end. So it's been really good. But next year, I'm not going to have the day job anymore. I've taken the plunge. Going like full throttle, I guess, with Cinora and the projects.
Amazing, and also well deserved. I mean, it's a scary step as well, but it's great that you've got to that point, because obviously knowing you for the last 3 or 4 years, like, you know, just following your journey, it isn't like an overnight thing. I think a lot of people forget that. It's a very slow thing where skills come together. What's also really interesting is, and I think to reflect on this year, one of the things I've learned the most is how this sort of online content and like making things yourself like sort of can tie in with your day job in the TV industry or like the screen industry. Like, it's so interesting. I used to see them quite separately, but it's interesting how they really overlap now. And I really appreciated the other week when you shared the episode I did with Hutch on Film, which was all about this sort of topic, and you were talking about how you've building your audience and gaining trust. Like, it's mad that as an independent creator now you can go off and build an audience, and then that can help lead to getting a feature film funded and made almost. It is really mad, and I don't think a lot of the traditional industry maybe always realise that.
Yeah, I think as well, it can be really daunting at first because when you start in online content, you're probably going to be speaking to a really small amount of people. You have to start somewhere, and it can be kind of off-putting for some when you've put a lot of effort into something and you put it out into the world and you just don't get a big response back. I don't know, I guess like I had a bit of experience in online content through osmosis because now every project you work on is coming with a social package. You got to cut trailers for online. You've got to think about moments that are going to appeal to audiences to draw them into the broadcast. So it was always there. And, you know, I'd done a lot of work with the BBC in online content as well, but it was very structured. And it wasn't until I got into this world of, you know, YouTubers, podcasters, people who were just like making whatever and throwing it out and getting a really strong response that I realized that you can kind of like just set your own rules. And for me, that was, okay, I know exactly like what I would like the channel to be. I'd love for like in a year's time or 3 years' time, if someone out there is like, I just really want to break into this industry and I really want to figure out the path, that they can come to the Cinora channel and learn all about the ways in which you can get in, who to speak to, what kind of things to go to, how to talk about yourself if you have no experience or skills, like really kind of find your way. And I guess for people who are already in the space but are a bit lost, because I think that's where I found myself. I think I felt like I've got all this experience, but for some reason, like we're still kind of searching. And like I say, there was some opportunities that disappeared overnight. And I just felt like, oh my God, how do I go forward from here? How do I move forward in my career, but also just like keep myself sustained, have enough work to get through a year? And so all of that was kind of like, yeah, imagine there was a place that this could happen. And the first couple of videos, I was quite strategic. I was like, I'm going to make something that might ruffle some feathers because that's going to get people through the door. And so I think my first video was called What the Fuck Happened to the Scottish Screen Industry? Because I was like, yeah, that's going to get some conversation. And it did. And from there, people continued watching, and I kind of figured out exactly what I wanted to share and what people really enjoyed hearing about too. But there's videos that I drop and they'll get like 30 views. And I just have to know that somebody found it valuable. And quite often it will just be like one comment, or somebody on a different platform shares it and says that they found a lot of value. And I'm like, well then, great, the job is done. Somebody out there has learned something or managed to take something away. And pushing through that is the key.
Yeah.
Continuing to post even though, and that's why it's so hard. I think coming into the online space, you don't get instant celebration, gratification. You've got to really work for that audience, but it's worth it, because look what can happen.
Well, and the other thing though as well that I've learned is that sometimes going viral on one video is actually quite damaging, because you end up, the algorithm pushes you out to the general pop, like, you know, to a massive audience, and most of those people aren't actually interested in, whether in my case, you know, they aren't interested in listening to the podcast, so they're not creative, they're not going to connect with the niche I'm in. Whereas sometimes if you have a video that maybe gets 300 to 500 views or whatever, you're hitting all the people that would be interested in you, like coming to your channel. So that can be quite a positive thing. So sometimes I've tried to flip that, so thinking, oh, I've only got like 400 views, and be like, well, that's great, because you're, as we were talking about earlier, like the audience that you want to target are like the people you're hitting.
I learned that the hard way quite early on, actually, because I didn't have a viral hit, but basically I took some advice that was like, you should promote your channel. So you pay YouTube a small amount of money and it pushes it out to people that aren't finding you right now. And yeah, it just completely destroyed how the algorithm viewed my audience. None of them, I had a high amount of views on some of those early videos, but such low engagement. The watch time was like 5 seconds and there was no comments. And it maybe reflected well to someone just at a glance going like, oh, great, 10,000 views on a video. But nobody was actively watching. And so I was like, yeah, this is actually making things worse, because now it doesn't identify who actually wants to see this. So I completely, if you are starting out, I would say that model of promotion and, you know, doing like a sponsored post or something like that to try and get a new audience, it's not the best tactic. Yeah, I had to go cold turkey, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not going to promote this, you know, because I'd done it for a couple of months and it was nice seeing the numbers go up, but it just wasn't the audience I was trying to reach. And it wasn't until I just like completely cut that off and just, you know, tried to reach people in other ways, get involved in Facebook groups and just talk about it nonstop with people, that it actually did find the audience it was supposed to find. But yeah, the virality thing is true as well. You can sometimes really just hit a niche that are excited about this one thing, but they might not be interested in the rest of what you have to say, and then that really skews things. I have worried about that a little bit about Thrawn, because we gathered a big audience of people who are really excited about a project about Scots language, and that's great because that's our audience. But the other things I have are really far away from that. The animated series is just not on the same wavelength at all. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, are they all going to start leaving because they're like, what's this? I don't understand that.
I'm sure you have range, I suppose. And, you know, I guess like you can make one thing for some people and, you know, you'll have that core audience that stay. I want to talk about Thrawn, and Thrawn even, I should say, not Thrawn, Thrawn. Very un-Scottish of me there. I want to talk about that because obviously this is the example of all your hard work. And what you've done on your online stuff as well has really helped push this and help, you know, people like Screen Scotland actually take note of this and want to back your film. But tell us about this, how this all come about, because it really has snowballed in the last month.
Yeah. So this is an idea that has swirled about from round about 2021. I have been fascinated with the sort of shift in Scottish culture, because when I was young, it was like really cringe being Scottish. And, you know, at school, you were told not to speak Scots language. You would get disciplined, punishment exercises, all that kind of stuff. I remember the teachers like really humiliating certain people for saying stuff a certain way or using words that they disapproved of. And you would always have it scribbled out in your notebook as well, like your jotter, if you'd done the wrong one. And so there was this mixture of like, Scots language and accents are wrong, they're not proper, that just being Scottish itself was something that you had to suppress. And I think this has been going on for a really long time, but something about growing up in the 90s really intensified this experience. And for me, I knew from a really young age that I wanted to go into media. Like, I worshipped television and films. they were an escapism, you know, they were where you could live another life. And I think I always felt that because of all of that influence, life in Scotland was the worst. We were not like living any sort of dream. It was all about breaking out of that. And I never saw people on TV who spoke the way that Scottish people do, who were respected, who came across positively. A lot of the time, Scottish people are the butt of the joke. And so that intersection of influence from culture and, being so excited about getting into film and TV really, like for me, internalized this hatred of Scottish culture entirely. And so by the time I was a teenager, I had dropped all use of Scots. I actively made the effort to speak either very clean English or like even sometimes I would swap out words for Americanisms. And I remember when I went to uni in my early 20s and all the international students were like, we can understand you really well. You don't sound Scottish at all. And I was so happy. I was like, yes, I've done it. I've finally broken free. And, in my 20s, I started to sort of feel a bit regretful of this, especially talking about the kind of international side. Whenever I went abroad, people would be like, oh, you don't sound very Scottish. And at first I was like, yay. And then eventually I was kind of like, that's kind of weird actually, because everybody I meet has some form of national pride, you know? Like you don't have to be wearing the t-shirt and, screaming your country's name, but you can still feel connected with culture and heritage, without having to be so brash. So I started this sort of like project in my mind where I was sort of trying to figure out like why do we feel shame about being Scottish? And at the same time, the culture shifted. They stopped doing this discipline in schools and then in fact started bringing in lessons to teach children Scots. And then so many different things happened. Edinburgh University, I believe, started bias training because their faculty were being prejudiced against Scottish students at the uni. And so it was like really feeling like, actually, we're going to tackle this now. We're not going to let it run rife. It's weird because hearing that, I was like, yeah, of course people are going to tell you to correct the way you speak or be prejudiced against you for being Scottish. I had that throughout my career. People were expectant of a Scottish person to be really brash, really rough and just like obnoxious and silly, and they would make fun of the way you said things. And you'd just come to accept that was the norm. But now we were basically trying to go against that. And then, of course, they announced that they were looking into reinstating Scots and Gaelic as an actual language. They would no longer be considered slang. And that was quite eye-opening for me because I'd never even considered that Scots words were actual language. Just always thought that was just a lazy way of speaking. That's what you'd been told. It's for Neds. It's for people who don't want to get any further in society than where they are. And yeah, it was quite a revelation. And I felt like something's going on, something where we now are actually working towards having a positive self-image and re-embracing these parts of our culture so that they don't die off. And I started talking to people about it a couple of years ago. And I was like, I think there's a documentary in this. I'm just not really sure how to frame it or what that looks like. And the more I spoke to people, the more people told me stories from their own life that had happened. And I began to understand that my journey of going into media and steering really far away and then coming back was maybe the sort of journey that I needed to explore and uncover. And there's still things like making this now that I'm unpacking and going like, oh, I have a massive bias. Wow. And then beginning of 2025, someone I know spoke to Karen Dunbar about the idea. And she took to it immediately. She was like, I know exactly what this is all about. And I have like so many examples of this throughout my life. So we sat down and had an interview. It was crazy. She said yes. And I think it was like Thursday. And she was like, I can meet you on Monday. I was like, oh my God. So I had to like scrape together a crew. Everybody was amazing and just came along to help me out. And I was so grateful, but it was like frantic because I was working that weekend and yeah, I was just kind of like spinning the plates again. And we made the interview happen, and she was fantastic. Like, she just instantly understood the feeling and could articulate it in ways that I hadn't been able to yet. And so the documentary erupted into happening. And, you know, we'd already started production technically before I'd really even developed it. And from there, I had this interview. I did a bit more filming in the spring of this year so that I had some other bits of footage that sort of portrayed how I felt it would go. I started going to events, talks, film festivals. I have a little postcard that is like, here is my project. You can scan the QR code. And the interesting thing was that everybody I spoke to got the idea, and they could often had their own anecdote of language suppression or culture suppression, even if they weren't Scottish. So it turns out this is a phenomenon that's happened all over the world. So I felt very connected in terms of the theme and what this documentary was trying to achieve. I felt like there was an audience out there. But unfortunately, everyone I spoke to who was linked with a commissioner or who had the power to make this project happen, just it didn't fit what they were looking for. Or I wasn't in the pipeline at the point where they needed me to be in order to access funds or in order to be eligible to make this documentary through traditional means. So as the year went on, I felt like I have to keep going. I've started now, you know, and it's incredible the footage we have and the response from people. So that's when I decided to crowdfund. And that was basically around October. I made all the materials. We launched it in November and it finished a week ago. And we went well over our target. And then we had a stretch goal, which we went over as well. So clearly there was a demand and an interest in making this come to life. And this is the thing, a lot of people I'd spoke to who couldn't help earlier were there for me in the crowdfunder. They supported it. So I was like, yeah, it's sometimes if the system says no, it's not the people that are like, I hate your idea. It's just that it can't happen that way, but they're still there for you, like in that moment where you're making it happen for yourself.
It probably speaks to this power of like having an audience and being able to create your own audience, which is getting harder and harder in this new age because everyone's got their own little silo. Well, maybe it's not getting harder because I suppose you've proven that you can actually, like anyone with the means and, you know, ability can actually crack that if they put the work in.
Yeah, we only had 900 subscribers on Instagram. And we have about almost 3,000 on YouTube, but not all of them are engaged. This is the thing you're saying about attracting an audience onto one thing, but then they don't stick around for everything else. We think we're about 1,000 on TikTok, and my Facebook game is awful. I have not cracked it yet. So that's not a substantial base to be working with. That wasn't people crying out for more Cinora. But those people that had come at that point were, like, certainly on Instagram and TikTok, they really loved what we were doing. And a lot of what they had been watching so far was me sharing advice about the industry and me interviewing people about their take on the industry as well. And that stuff was really fun and shareable. But it meant that when Thrawn came along and made a bigger splash, that anybody who sort of saw it cold and were like, I've never heard of Cinora before, what is this? And came through to our places, they could then see a year's worth of quality material, of fun stuff, of things that matched what they'd just watched, that they could see. And basically this whole thing, is about trust. You know, you got to see something that was successful and high quality and like had like a bit of buzz about it already, and it's like, this is the next big thing. Okay, I'll get behind that. So you know, even if those early videos didn't have massive views, it was a trail. It was evidence that like, I'll persist and I'll make something, you know, whether you're watching or not, it's there. So yeah, I think that's a large part of building your online presence, just persistence.
Yeah, because I think people see it. It's like with the podcast now, this is, 185 episodes or whatever. People go, okay, and even some of the early episodes, you're like, well, they're obviously rubbish, but people see the journey as well. They go, this person's growing from here to here, and they seem to like that. You take it more seriously than somebody who's just appeared, which is why it can take up to 2 to 3 years to build that audience, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But it's worth putting in the time, for sure. I've found this year that, sometimes I've been able to, my goal is to have a video a week, and I've been able to do that some months, no problem. And then other months I've really struggled. But I always come back to it. And the times where I have been able to put out more, that still lives there. You know, a new person discovering you has still got all that to go back through. But if you can't match that kind of pressure and consistency all the time, then do what you can. And if you need to take a break, take it. And then when people find you, there's still going to be all of that stuff, all that value that you've already created and put out there. And that's what I do with podcasts. If I find a new one, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back through the old episodes and see what topics I really want to hear, or just make my way through the entire list. So it works.
Yeah, well, if you listen to this episode for the first time, anyone, there's 184 other ones, lots of great chats. Have a wee look back through the archives. Ash, I also want to sort of look back on the year and stuff and reflect. And something I want to ask you as well is, what's something that you're really happy about that you've done this year that maybe wouldn't be on a CV or wouldn't be online that somebody would know about? Is there like a little personal one you've had?
Oh, that is a really good question. I'm going to take a look at my list of things that we've done this year, because they're so different. And that's the interesting thing. I think I've always been someone who preaches like pick a lane and I don't practice what I preach. I'm reading the list and I'm like, maybe this. I think a few things. We screened our first short film. And you wouldn't put that on a CV. But in terms of, because we made this film to go on YouTube, I always knew it was going to have an online audience, and that was the end goal. But screening it in person gave us an experience of people being like really excited about seeing it, getting real feedback in the moment, meeting people, because once they saw the film and enjoyed it, they wanted to know who made it, they wanted to work with them. So that was a really lovely experience. It was really uplifting. And, you know, we did post to say, like, we screened the boulder, but the aftermath of the screening of the boulder is the part that I think was a really pleasant surprise, stronger than I'd ever had at a festival before. And just, a really, really lovely moment that has propelled and kicked off other things that I didn't see coming.
You've also just reminded me, Ash, thank you for sharing that answer as well, that you were nominated for a BAFTA this year as well. How have we left this off? I mean, it's very humble of you, but we can't not mention that.
So I edited a film back in 2023, I think. It was a student project, and my pal Gavin and I bumped into each other in Film City, and he was studying a master's. I was working at an edit facility there, and he was like, oh, I actually really need an editor for my student project. Would you be up for doing me a favor? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd known him for about 10 years, and it was nice to reconnect and work on something together. And so that summer, we just chipped away at his project. He brought me basically every piece of footage that he had ever filmed in his life, all in one hard drive. And I was like, all right, let's find out what your story is. And it was all about the disenfranchisement from going through art school and being disappointed that he didn't suddenly get picked up as an artist and just make it in the big world. And the project that he made was a 6-foot volcano. And basically, in the 5 years since he graduated, that had lived in his dad's shed. And it was this big reminder of the failure of art school and how it didn't manifest a career. And so the documentary really explores that, how difficult it is to be a struggling artist, to be working class and not have any connections, to be good at what you do, but have no one recognize it, you know? So it was quite deep. And yeah, we edited that over the summer, and he turned it in to his university and got his master's degree, and it was like excellent. So about a year later, he started taking it to festivals, and he got into Edinburgh International, which is a BAFTA qualifier. And from there it snowballed. Once he got into Edinburgh, he got into London, he got into the Smalls, he got into some really good festivals, went further afield. So he was in the US when the BAFTA nomination was announced. And it was like, still to this day, Gavin has not found his artistic career, but the film has taken off. And I was sitting at my desk here the beginning of October, and started seeing on Instagram that we'd been nominated for a BAFTA. And I was like, I didn't even know that we were put forward. Like, what? And yeah, he was like, oh, I think I threw our hat in the ring, but didn't really think it would actually happen. And they don't tell you until it's public. So you're just reacting in real time as the same way as everybody else. And it was a pleasant surprise. It was unbelievable. I was like, I had no idea I was going to be nominated for a BAFTA today. I didn't see this coming at all. But it was a lovely experience, and the film really deserved the nomination. We didn't win, but
you're a
we did
BAFTA
not feel like
editor.
that's it. Exactly. I don't feel like a loser at all.
not many people can say that. No, that's class.
It was great. And I'm so pleased that it was like that film. And they played a little clip of it at the awards ceremony and it got a massive laugh. And I was just so happy. I was like, yes, this is the whole point. This film made of nothing is now like entertaining a room full of BAFTA nominated people. So it was awesome.
That's class. And see, I wasn't the achievement you chose to talk about, but I just wanted to, I remembered there, I was like, we can't not talk about that. What has there been like a lesson you've taken away from this year in 2025? Like, have you had like a biggest lesson?
That's a very good question. There's been a few, I think, along the way. Certainly in the like working with your audience kind of space. I mean, the whole crowdfunder for Thrawn was a massive lesson. I kind of, at many points in crowdfunding, came up against like a hurdle and then had to work my way around it. And then that turned out to be better than the way I was going to do it in the first place. It turns out you can't post videos longer than 3 minutes on Instagram. And my campaign video was 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So it came up and told me, yeah, you can post it, but it won't be shown to people that don't follow you. And I was like, this whole campaign rests on people that don't follow me. I definitely need them on board. So then I had to do this thing called a trial, where I made a shorter version and it goes out to people who don't follow you exclusively. And it doesn't appear on your profile and all that kind of stuff. And that was like a secret weapon. It turned out that doing a trial is like how you engage people that don't follow you. And like that was hugely successful for us. The entire campaign really like was propelled by that mistake on Instagram. So yeah, that was a big learning curve that if I was ever going through something like this again, I would absolutely tap into. And now knowing this, like all of the projects that I work on, I'm like, and now I can do that. I can reach people that I didn't know I could reach through the error of my old ways.
There's little things that come up and you're like, oh my God, this is like prohibiting me. And it's scary when you run your own channels and stuff because you know it is like completely like the algorithms change every like month as well. Do you finally think you'd figured Instagram or TikTok or something out and then it changes again?
Yes, definitely. I had that experience with TikTok. I think there was a moment where the videos were doing really, really well, and certainly when I started doing the interviews in the Glasgow subway. They were, I mean, obviously I took inspiration directly from the great subway takes, but initially they were like doing fantastically, thousands of views, lots of engagement, people talking about what their favourite Scottish film was and things like that. And so I was like so ready for that to be a big place for our crowdfunder. And I shared the videos there and they just went unnoticed. It was so strange. I was like, okay, for some reason over on Instagram, Karen Dunbar's got like 170,000 views, but on TikTok, she's got 90. I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand at all. It's the same video. You'd think it was the same audience, but yeah, it's hard to navigate. And again, it's just like, keep being persistent. You never know.
Correlation between Instagram and TikTok is absolutely wild. That's something I've really learned this year. Is like the viral videos I've all had on TikTok have never gone viral on Instagram. And the Instagram ones that have gone more viral haven't gone viral on TikTok. I'm like, this makes utterly no sense. And then the exact same video, basically.
Yeah.
I know there's different platforms, so there's obviously some variation, but it is quite extraordinary when you think about the fact it is, because I consume Reels the same way I consume TikTok, personally.
Same. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I do sometimes think about like, what are people doing when they're scrolling TikTok or they're scrolling Instagram? Is it that far apart? I honestly don't think it is. I'm like you. It would be the same circumstances for me. So it doesn't really make sense, but I think it is probably down to the algorithm. And what is being pushed to people at certain times and just how that video landed in its first few moments,
Yeah.
where it goes next. So yeah, I don't know. I'm beginning to really feel the power of discoverability on Instagram personally, which I didn't have before. And I think that is, again, from like having some strong videos that are still finding people, and then, you know, even though they were posted like over a month ago, somehow people are coming in that way and then finding other stuff that they like. So yeah, it's still worth posting no matter where,
Definitely.
like what
The bit,
platform and
yeah.
how pathetically it's doing. It's gonna serve a purpose eventually.
No, definitely. And you're just learning as well. Like something I've done for the last 3 months, I posted on TikTok at least once a day, every day. Some of it's crap. Like, you know, I'm trying things out. And it's mad because I never thought I'd become a person. I used to always say I'm never doing a video to camera. But then you push yourself to
Yes,
do it. And it you know, yeah.
absolutely.
And it gets people more comfortable with your show as well. They recognize your face and they associate with your podcast or your channel or whatever.
Well, something that happened to me halfway through the Thrawn campaign was that I somehow got like the cold or flu, lost my voice, couldn't record any videos. A week went by and I was feeling better, and I think I recorded one in the middle of that. And then somehow I caught the cold or flu again. And I know it's not possible. So I think one of them may have been COVID. I'm not really sure. But basically for about a 3-week block, I was so sick. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. But most of the time I was just like far too bunged up and sick to be on camera. And that was the whole thing. Like, it was me, you know, like I imagined that throughout the campaign, I would just constantly be talking to camera. But I also had this thing as well where all of my videos I felt had to be really polished. I had to like throw up good lighting and like put makeup on and really like rehearse and then present. Partially because I felt that if people were going to buy into me as a documentary maker and they were going to back the film, that I had to put quality out. And I had to make sure that everything around this screamed professional and I'm really good at what I do. But actually, when I was ill and not able to do all of that stuff and would just like pick up my phone and go like, hi guys, it's just a quick thank you. I'm full of the cold, but hey, I really appreciate that everyone's supporting me. They did just as well.
Just swiping a fly there for anyone wondering why they didn't do that.
Those videos did just as well as the stuff that I'd like really obsessed over and polished and like put a lot of effort into. So that was another learning curve for me, that actually just the unpolished still has a place too. Even if your whole thing is, I'm a professional filmmaker and everything's like really, really high quality. But it's you, honestly. I guess it's maybe harder if you're not planning to be on camera, but if you are, like, just your personality is the key thing, and how you come across to people is what's going to bring them back.
Definitely, because if you're just being fake as well, then it's kind of pointless, because you're not going to, like, if I had a different persona on Instagram and then they came and listened to the podcast and I was not that persona, then it wouldn't really work. Or it'd confuse your audience and stuff. And I think people do respond. Obviously, as you say, the quality thing is important. For me personally, I know that this podcast isn't quite, I'd like to be in a studio. I'd like to improve that in 2026 and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I'm showing up, being honest. The conversation's still good. So at the end of the day, the quality is a great part of it. But at the end of the day, like, people want the good conversation, the authentic stuff, that sort of thing, I think goes.
Absolutely. So the actual things you're talking about are super important, because that's the whole reason someone's going to listen. But also with podcasts and a lot of mediums, actually documentary almost as well, if your audio is flawless, then it's fine. Like the visuals could be crazy as hell. You could be filming on something like really low quality. That doesn't matter. If the audio is good, people can sit through the whole thing and enjoy themselves. And I find that really fascinating. It's a really weird but fun phenomenon, which again is really encouraging if you're starting out. Like, just make sure your sound is clean and the visuals can be any crazy old shit.
Yeah. And you could just post photos or like, you know, text on social media. You never even have to show your face. I
follow a really great Instagrammer who does that exact thing. I think her name is Charlotte Produces. I'm sure you'll have seen her come up. But basically she just does a carousel and it'll be like her with like a coffee, like looking away, and then it'll just be like a photo of the sky, then a photo of like a blank book or something. Like none of the photos mean anything or are that interesting, but all of the text that she puts over them is like such high value advice and information about working in the film industry. And so her following is there because they know that like this crazy ass carousel of like an empty coffee cup and a book and whatnot is actually going to be like filled with really, really important things that you need to read.
Yeah.
It's like that is another example of just being able to do something really low key. And it's great.
And you can reuse old photos. Like I make some carousels now, and these actually do really well. And they're some of my favorite posts to do because I'm writing and I'm coming up with, I'm sharing knowledge I've learned, and you can get like a photo of like, I don't know, you were on a set 5 years ago and I took a photo and I'm like, oh, use that, things like that. So those are low effort stuff. You can do loads of low effort things and get people engaging with your content.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. I want to also ask you, Ash, about we're talking about films, media that you've consumed and stuff this year. What is there anything that's really inspired you this year, particularly coming out of Scotland or the UK?
Oh, that's a great question. I might have to have a think about it for a moment. There absolutely is. So, well, okay, so I bang on about this all the time, but this year I finally watched Tummy Monster, and I talked about it online so much that the director reached out at Kieran Lights, and he was like, first of all, would you like a screener? And second of all, if you want me to come on the channel, I'm totally up for it. So we did an interview round about when the film was released. Lovely, lovely guy. And the wonderful thing about this, so Tummy Monster is fantastic. They made it on a very small budget, which inspirational for me going into my first feature documentary, because our budget is probably about a third of what you would get were you going ahead with a broadcaster or traditional funding. So learning how to be resourceful from that film has been instrumental. They rehearsed and planned for that so well that they managed to shoot it in about a week or 2 weeks or something like that. It was like really, really tight. And I asked him about that, and he was like, there was no like blocking on set. There was no spending time deliberating decisions and going like, oh, should this light be here? They did so much planning before it that when they got to set, everything ran extremely smoothly. And it wasn't, crazy hours. People didn't have to like work around the clock in order to like get to the deadline. It was just a tight ship. And don't get me wrong, he has said himself that hopefully the next film doesn't have to be such a tight ship. But I found it like inspirational in terms of making it happen and making it happen really professionally. It's such a fun story, and it's just really different to what you see in, I guess, the Scottish space in a way. Because a lot of Scottish films are very, let's use the landscape, let's get the character out in the rugged Scottish wilderness. And this one was like, we're in the middle of a city trapped inside a tattoo parlor for 48, 36 hours. But it's beautiful. It's so highly visual. It's really funny. It's really well acted. It's a great dynamic. The crux of the film is just really, really fun, and you don't really know where it's going. And so I loved it. And yeah, I found learning about the process quite inspirational for me as well. I managed to watch On Falling, which was a really, really big film for Scotland this year. It was at Cannes. It's been in loads of festivals around the world, nominated for a BAFTA also. And did it win the BAFTA? I should know this.
I think it might have done. You were in the room.
I know, but I was too concentrated on the short film category to notice what was going on. Did On Falling win the BAFTA?
I'm keeping this in.
It did. It won Best Feature Film and it won Best Writer. Well done, Laura Carrera.
I'd love to interview Laura. That would be cool, actually. We'll manifest
that would be really
for 26,
cool.
But yeah.
One of us will get to her for sure. Use my tactic. Just keep talking about her, and eventually she'll be like, are you the person that mentions me once a month? No, it was fantastic. I think about it all the time, like the portrayal of that particular part of life and what it's like to be in those circumstances in Scotland. it really stays with you. And it's just, again, really, really well made, really well shot, well acted. It has a mood and a vibe. And I know, so something that comes up all the time in our conversations with creatives is the Scottish miserableism, and how quite often we are portrayed as a nation that is sad and dismal and hates ourselves and life here sucks. But, like, I feel like this was kind of quietly devastating in a new way. And it's hard because, like, it feels like the character has hope at the end of the film, but you're just like wrestling with a lot of emotions as you watch it, and wondering, like, what is next in life for this poor woman. And I just thought that that was done in a really, really clever way. So that for me has also been quite inspirational. And within Thrawn, because it's a documentary, I get to unpack all my feelings about Scottish miserableism and reflect on what it's like to live here, and what we want it to be like for the future. So I got to think that through whilst I was watching the film too, which was really amazing.
Yeah, and then I know, and I don't know if this film counts as Scottish, but because I know the director and stuff aren't Scottish. There's a fly buzzing around this room, so it's distracting me constantly. But I Swear obviously is an example of something set in Scotland that's managed to really feel, it's so universal that it's kind of big in the UK and across the world now, which is great to see, like a very uplifting film come out of Scotland. Yeah, even though I know it wasn't all, because I know the director and stuff aren't Scottish, but it still is a Scottish film.
This is such a great sort of like leap pad though, because what is a Scottish film,
Exactly.
Like, are there many national cinemas out there that have an identity that is completely Scottish or completely of their nation? Like, even US films, when Trump announced he was going to introduce all those tariffs and like films could only be made domestically, everyone in the industry was like, hell no. Every single film you watch is a co-pro. So even your most high budget, high concept, massive franchises are tapping into funds and locations and talent in other territories. And it's just almost at that scale not possible to make a film that doesn't incorporate an international base. And it was one of those things. I explored this as a subject last year on the Cinora channel, like, what is Scottish cinema? Because I'd been asking people, what's your favourite Scottish film? And they were really struggling to think of one. And it's because of that. And they were like, oh, well, that wasn't a Scottish director, or that was a Scottish story, but it was shot abroad, or I don't know if this is like a Scottish film or not. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? We can form our own little Scottish test. If it ticks a couple of boxes, then we're going to claim it. And, maybe we're not going to say Spider-Man 4 is a Scottish film, although they shot it here. Like, you can certainly acknowledge like films that have utilized the culture and location and people. And I think, definitely I Swear is on that list.
100%. And also, like, it doesn't really matter. I think it's a great thing that you can make a film universally and it happens to be set here. I think we need, it's great. Like, because I think I was speaking to an exec recently, and they were saying to me that sometimes they feel as a nation we actually shoot ourselves in the foot by talking about a Scottish production too much. And he was saying, like, what is Scottish? Like, why, just talking about something that's funny or that's it's that thing as well. So I think we do need to sometimes get better as that as a nation. Like, I think it's really important to represent the country, and I'm all for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, like, we are at a point. Like, one thing that's been really apparent to me this year is that Scotland is basically on the cusp of absolutely taking over, like, the cultural conversation in terms of media. So here's why. It's part theory, part observation, okay? We're at a point where there are so many indie filmmakers who are just out there making their stuff. Whether that is with support from Screen Scotland, Creative Scotland, other institutions, or whether they've completely gone it alone. There is so much happening now that you can't keep track. Whereas a few years ago, 5 years ago, you'd struggle to know what was happening in Scotland. You'd be like, is there anything being filmed right now? Or is there, like, what's actually happening? So the amount that's happening right now, I think, is reflective of, we have now put so much effort and investment into training, into getting people through labs, on programs, or just in enough spaces that they're learning really high quality stuff. And we're really pushing away from this prior idea that Scotland wasn't good enough, that we couldn't make things as high quality as the rest of the world. We're not only matching that now, making stories that are important to us and doing things that I think are different to what you'll find in other spaces, forming a Scottish sense of humour and way of life and kind of style and things like that. But what's happening on a bigger level is this whole thing around education and young people. It's been kind of controversial because a lot of people feel that why are we educating people in film if there's not enough jobs? But here's the thing. We do have tons of international productions coming to Scotland now. Like Glasgow has pretty much been a film set for the entire year. It's been back to back. And there's so many other things going on as well around the country. And there are series that are returning and happening again. And there's so much happening that I feel with the kind of education side of this as well. And this is completely formed of my own thoughts, that nobody's talked me through the plan. I'm not in Screen Scotland. I don't know this for sure. But if you look at countries like Korea or Japan, they have massive cultural weight. People are obsessed with what they put out, even if they've never been there before. And they're obsessed with their style of media. And that encourages them to buy things that are made there, to engage with their media, seek out Korean drama, Korean music, Japanese anime, even just like cultivate a lifestyle where that's something that you're excited for. In the same way that film people can be excited for A24. It's like, okay, whatever is happening in that country is something that I really resonate with and I really love. And I think that Scotland is building up to that. I think that productions, particularly film, are going to be like, not only is there tax incentives, not only is the country beautiful and full of locations that we want to use, but there is so many people trained over there making great quality stuff, quirky things, they think outside the box, and they've got all of these skills that have come up since school level to appreciate and work in production in a professional manner. And then we're going to become one of those places that people are like, have you seen any Scottish cinema? That's what I think is happening.
Really optimistic. I like it. I actually partly agree with you. My worry is that we still don't have the ecosystem to sustain people in careers. But what is giving me a lot of hope at the moment is all the stuff that you're an example of this, Ash, with Cinora, all this sort of thing, all people doing content, like making audiences online and being able to create stuff. I think that has given me a lot of hope that I wonder if that partly will become the new ecosystem as people in the spaces we're in right now also creating that. Because there's so much more podcasts and channels and things coming out of Scotland as well at the moment, and it's happening across the whole UK as well, to be fair. So I do hope that helps as well. And obviously, as you say, like there's lots of positive steps. I just worry that the ecosystem's very fragile at the moment, and there's still a lot of people in our industry not working or having to leave because they can't pay the bills.
100%. And this is the thing. I mean, I'm obviously really optimistic about that as a future for Scotland. It's not next year, and it's maybe not even the year after. It's a very long game, but it's about kind of being ready for it. And I've made a few videos now on the channel about like the kind of the challenge of being creative in the UK right now, and in Scotland in particular, because that's where we are. Like, I didn't want to step away from freelancing a couple of years ago. I loved that lifestyle. I loved the variety of things that I worked on, and I really mourned the freedom and the creativity that I got to have when I stepped into the online content space and had like a 9-to-5 editing vlogs and podcasts and things like that, because it wasn't where I was aiming, and it wasn't what I was like going for. And I know people as well that have had to take a complete step back and go into another industry because there's just nothing that can sustain them within media anymore. It absolutely is happening. And I think that it's a very personal choice, whether it's a clean cut and you're going, I'm closing the book on this. That's my career in media done, and I'm going to move on to something else, or whether there is still something within you that's like, I'd like to lead myself back, and how to do that. And I think the key for it is what can you do to continue being creative? What can you contribute, even if that's just something once a month that signals, is it a newsletter? Is it you're going to create a podcast and you're just going to have one guest a month? Or are you just going to make some videos online? You don't have to be present. You could make something that is, you're completely off camera, utilize text, utilize whatever tools you want to,
Uh,
to make something. I think there's a lot of, or maybe you do move into another area. Maybe you go into like events or kind of planning, and you utilize the skills that you had from the media industry in a new way, that maybe in a couple of years you can say, you know what, I learned a bunch from taking part in this industry instead, but utilizing everything that I knew here, and now I'm better for it. It's tough. It's really tough. And it
yeah.
is annoying that we're waiting a really long time for things to smooth out.
Yeah, and but like I do love your optimism, and I think it's great we do have people like yourself who are thinking like really innovatively about ways we can you grow the industry, and that also gives me hope. Like the people I've interviewed this year, some credible people doing some great things on their own back. Like even an example like the Eric app, which is the UK wide app helping young people find internships and jobs and stuff. Like there's so many things like that where people are trying to match the jobs. And even when I interviewed
Yeah.
the Creative Industries Ministry in Murray, which I know he's in the UK wide brief, but because he's Scottish, he was talking about a lot of the steps and stuff. And obviously I've got
Yeah.
frustrations with the government. I think they could do a lot more in certain areas, but it is good that there is now, at least we have a Scottish and UK government that do value the arts in some ways and are trying to create those pathways and get it into education and stuff. And there's lots of positive things. So I obviously
Yeah.
want to end our reflection of 2025 positively. I've only got a few more questions for you anyway, but I'm not trying to disagree with your optimism. I think it's a hard one, isn't it? Because I feel
But
mixed.
yeah, I mean, I went through the kind of crushing devastation of it all. But I think I've processed it quite quickly. And like
Uh,
I said, I it still gets me down sometimes, don't get me wrong. And certainly going into 2026, leaving the day job behind, focusing full time in Sonora, it's terrifying. I don't know what's going to happen when the money I've allocated to keep the roof over my head runs out. I really don't. But I have to have faith, and I'm the type of person that is willing to. And I mean, there's a fortunate side, I guess, in a way to my life, that I don't have as many responsibilities as some other people might have. Do have a mortgage, but I don't have children, and I don't have, that whole other responsibility to consider. It's completely personal. But for me, I am willing to take a bit of risk and like really throw myself at something. And in the past, that usually, maybe not immediately, but eventually leads to something. And so obviously I don't want to encourage everybody into taking big leaps of faith, but you'll know for yourself what that is, and how comfortable you are, what kind of length you're willing to leap. And
uh,
I'd say like sometimes, yeah, take the leap of faith that you're willing to take.
Of course, and I very much as a person, I think I think it's frustrating, isn't it, online when you see all these entrepreneurs going like, start a business, quit your, it's all balance. Like you have to be, it's being calculated about it and trying to
Yeah.
manage that risk, and it's great. It's really good to take. You got to take some risk. It's all a balance.
Yeah. Even the first time I went freelance, I saved up for a year in order to be able to do that. And that was my goal. I was like, okay, every month I'm putting away half my wage because my overhead was really low and I had even less responsibilities then. I knew that it wasn't something that you can just quit your job one day and everything will work out. There'll be a paycheck at the end of the month.
Mhm.
Like you've got to prepare for it for sure. But yeah, I think that if each individual can work out their own level of that and figure out something they can do, even if it's just a contribution of time a little bit, like you don't have to leave the day job, but maybe one weekend a month you can dedicate to what you'd really like to do, your passion, and see how it goes. Do one week, and then if you think, hey, I could manage that, that's where to start.
Really. A couple of quick more questions, Ash. Obviously, you were on my panel at the start of the year. We got We's 5 to 25. What happens now? And well, we
That's
kind of
right.
survived 2025 almost. We nearly got there. Nearly. But I want to ask about 2026. Obviously, we touched on it. I know you're quitting your job and stuff to really focus on this stuff. But what are sort
Yeah.
of goals for 2026? What would you like to do in 2026?
Ooh, well, I am going to make Thrawn. This will be my first feature documentary, and that has been on my list of goals for about 4 years. So it's finally going to happen. The first quarter of the year is going to be like full on. And yeah, I'm going to see where the year takes me. But at some point, 2026, I'll have a finished film, which is pretty huge. So that's goal number one. Another goal that has been on my list for a really long time was just to make Cinora my full-time job. I've always had to supplement my income with a day job or doing other freelance things. It's never stopped, and I'm very guilty for not saying no. And I need to learn that. And going into 2026, I'm going to be really selective with how I spend my time and start saying no, so that I'm focusing on exactly what I want to grow. So that's a big goal of mine as well. I am going to be pitching my animated idea in the beginning of March at the Glasgow Film Festival. So far, they've confirmed that there'll be a representative from Netflix and a representative from Aardman Studios. So just the heavyweights of the animation industry in the UK. So that's a big one, and it's happening. It's on the calendar. You know, as a goal, I know it's going to be ticked off, and it's just about getting there to the pitch and doing the best I can. Yeah, things like that. That's my 2026 in a nutshell.
It's very, very exciting. Last question for you today, Ash. Oh, one more thing, go for it.
I did think I just remembered one last goal: starting a podcast.
Yes, well, well, watch the space there, eh? Watch the space. Perhaps a warm up.
100%.
No, that is exciting. I mean, there's some great things happening in the background, which I look forward to telling the listeners about as well and things. I want to, last question for you is about your lesson. I've asked you about your lessons earlier, but like, from all that, is there like some advice you would share with our listeners from what stuff you've done in 2025? I know I've given an advice question on this podcast probably 3 times now, so apologies if I'm making you scrape the barrel.
I would say that try new things, and look to things that are happening around you for clues as to how you can make a success. You know, success is defined by how you want to measure it. And, you know, for me, beginning of Cinora, growing the YouTube channel and making a profit from that was like my top goal. And in April this year, we were monetized, but it's all over the place. You know, some months you make a decent amount of money, some months you make absolutely nothing. You put the same effort in every time, and it can be really destabilizing. But I think, like, definitely experiment, have, see what is out there that you're interested in. And if you've never worked on a podcast before, then ask somebody if you can help them out, if you can come on, if you can see the back end, if you can help edit or something like that. Take a look at online content and have a think about, is there something that you could make, or is there some people you like that you'd like to collab with? A lot of people have reached out to Cinora to say that, like, they'd love to get started in video essays or online content in some way. And so I invite them in and I say, all right, if you want to help edit a few videos, like, we can make that happen. You can get experience and we can work out like how that fits in with us, our schedule and our budgets. And honestly, it is just about sort of like trying things, taking a little bit of a leap of faith, but putting yourself out there and see what skills you can gather and collect and where that may lead. Does that then become something that you're super passionate about and it's now your like thing, your baby that you work on all the time, and you grow into something bigger? Or is it some skills that you pick up and then lo and behold, down the line, somebody needs that from you and now you're the person that they're going to go to make their goal happen, and you know, you've kept yourself going in this crazy wild industry. So yeah, definitely try out some new things and see where it leads you. Because for Cinora 2025, we did a ton of different things. We've done short films, we've been along to film festivals. I started interviewing people in the Glasgow subway just because I saw that was successful online, and I thought, hey, I'm already interviewing people. Let's spice it up a little bit, and that's been so much fun. And it's propelled us further because people see it and recognize it and go, okay, this is pretty cool. And yeah, we've had a variety of different projects, a variety of different things that we've done online as well. So we've been a bit experimental with our video formats, the advice we're giving out. We started a newsletter this year, which is growing as well. And yeah, I'd love to, get into some new spaces in 2026 and see what we can grow.
We'll watch the space as well, because I think there's going to be some other exciting things which I'm sure we both look forward to announcing. I want to say as well, before I thank you, Ash, as well, thank you to all of the Just Get a Real Job listeners. It's also the last episode of 2025. Been an amazing year for the podcast, and it's been so many amazing new listeners. I think according to Spotify Wrapped, there's like 933% increase in new listeners, which is absolutely mental. To everyone that's listened and supported the show this year, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate all the support and messages and people just tuning in. It's mad. It makes the time really worthwhile. And Ash, thank you for all your support this year. I love the industry we've got in Scotland and how all the content creators like me and you and other people all like kind of get together and help each other out and learn from each other. It's very inspiring, and I look forward to seeing all the exciting things to come from Cinora in 2026.
Amazing. Thanks, Jamie. And yeah, what a great end to the year.
Just get a real job.